Okay, good evening. Thank you all for being here on a fairly miserable, cold night outside. I'm Tim Boyd. I'm the Associate Head of School and Academic Dean and oversee the general course registration process. I will say just at the outset, it's nice to see there are some behaviors we've all learned in, I think, elementary or middle school that just persist through the years. So these front rows, when we have class meetings, they are empty. When we have faculty meetings, they are basically empty. And when it's parent meetings, they're empty too. Something about those is intimidating. But the structure of this evening, I'm going to give just a general overview of how the course registration process works. And then we have each of the 6 department chairs here who will give an overview of the particular part in their departments in the high school. A lot of this information will be most relevant if you have a son who's currently an 8th grader about to enter the 9th grade, or if you've never gone through the course registration process before, so if your son is a new 9th grader, new 10th grader, new 11th grader. At the end of it all, we will stay here and we will be glad to answer any questions you might have about particular situations your son is facing or that you have questions about. This is also not a one-shot deal, so if you listen to the information tonight and then a question occurs to you tomorrow, please don't hesitate to reach out either to myself, to one of the department chairs. Susan Cobb is also here as head of the junior school, so questions for current 8th grade students, she'll be a great resource as well. So the boys also will have this information given to them in class meetings this week and next, so that will also hopefully reinforce what I have to say tonight. The main 2 pieces of paper I want to make sure everyone is aware of are these 2. There's a course selection sheet, which is this grid, which is in the back of the course registration workbook that they were given on Monday. And then there's the course recommendation sheet, which is the colored sheet of paper that they were given as well. Different grades have different colors. This is the color for the rising 9th grade. We've given the rising 12th grade gold sheets just to feed into their general sense of importance and significance. The way I would encourage you to think about this is the menu, and this is you entering your order. So this sheet is one that the students will give to their teachers this week, and the teachers, it has a list of courses that they could take next year. And the teachers will initial their recommendations on this sheet and then give it back to the students. If a student is currently in a regular class and is interested in moving into honors or AP next year, it could be that their grade in regulars is already so high that the teacher is going to say, you're a lock for honors, I'm going to sign it now. It may be not quite so high, in which case the teacher may say, I'm going to put down regulars for now, and I'm going to write on the other side, review for honors at the end of the 2nd semester. That's a very normal thing for moving from regulars to honors. It does not disadvantage the student. The honors places are not capped. They have just as much chance of getting in if it's approved at the end of the semester based on their 2nd semester grade as if they get it now. Sometimes the boys get a little nervous about that. It makes no difference from that standpoint. We just want to be sure that that move is the right one sometimes before going ahead with it. Once they have this sheet filled out, they would move on to this one, and they would fill out for whichever the coming year is the classes they want to take, ideally matching up with what the teachers have recommended on this one. This is the one that you need to sign to make sure that they have had that conversation with you. They will be talking to their advisors, but it's obviously crucial that they go through these choices with you as well. In 10th and 11th grade, it's also quite often valuable to have a conversation with the college counseling office, just because there are more choices at that time and also choices that might be of more relevance to the particular college applications that they're interested in putting in. So a couple of the nuts and bolts, and I will share these slides tomorrow as well, so no need to necessarily memorize all of this. But first of all, please make sure they have signed up for at least 5 classes, of which at least 4 must have exams. They can sign up for a maximum of 6, but they need at least 5. And especially in senior year, a lot of those classes will be electives. I will tell my rising seniors in my advisory they only often have 1 core credit they need to sign up for, which occasionally they think means I just have 1 class I need to take. They still need to fill those other 4 spots. They just have a lot more choice than they would do in 9th or 10th grade. Again, please make sure that the sheet is signed before it's returned to the advisor. And this is less critical we're not expecting parents to have memorized the graduation requirements. If you see anything on the selection that you're just curious about, please ask us. We will be checking that anything they turn in meets graduation requirements as well, but this sheet does include how many credits are needed in each department. So there is a way in that conversation for you just to be reassuring yourself, but please reach out with questions. We don't expect you to supervise that entirely. That's our role here as well. A couple of deadlines to keep in mind. This is the kind of thing where we want the process to move along, but we don't want it to be rushed. So the first phase lasts for 3 weeks. So they were given the course selection sheet and the recommendation sheet on Monday of this week, or it may have been this morning for a few of them. They have basically 3 weeks to show it to their teachers, get the recommendations, talk to their advisors, talk to you, talk to college counseling, and then on the 26th they need to turn in both of these sheets of paper to their advisor. So physically turn them in. Now obviously if they're out sick that day, they get an extra time, but we really want as much of that in on that Friday as possible because the registrar is going to start processing the selections. About 10 days later, they will receive a printout of the courses that they have signed up for. Their advisor will give these to them. There are 850 students. There is going to be a data entry error at some point, so partly this is just a check. Is this what you intended to sign up for? Also for you as parents, is this what you intended to sign up for? It's also possible that in those 10 days they've changed their mind about something, in which case they can still make an adjustment at this stage as well. At this point they would make the adjustment handwritten. You would sign that you approve the adjustment as well, but that's another way they can do it. They have about a week to do that. This is essentially the 15th is the last day before President's Day break. So at that point, they would take that confirmation sheet, give it back to their advisor. It will have 2 signatures on it, their signature, parent or guardian signature, and then the advisor will sign it as well to confirm that everyone's reviewed it. Then it gets turned back into the registrar, and that essentially completes the initial stage of the course registration process. Now, that does not mean if a mistake has been made, it's now too late to do anything about it. There are still mistakes can be corrected. And again, at the end of the semester, a lot of boys who will have received the verdict, as it were, you're in regs now, I think you could make honors, I want to make sure the second semester is strong. There'll be a lot of boys who then that gets reviewed again at the end of the semester, so there's kind of a second phase of the registration process then as well. But in terms of us being able to start building a schedule and making teaching assignments, we want kind of 95% of the information to be in by President's Day weekend. As I mentioned, just on the basis that people who have 8th grade students now will be going through this for the first time, and that's the least familiar. This is an example of a typical 9th grade schedule. You will hear again from each of the department chairs, not just about 9th grade choices, but about the courses in general in that department. The good news is that for most classes in the 9th grade, it's a pretty simple choice. Will it be a regulars class or an honors class? There are 4 courses where typically the students don't really have a choice about the subject, so English 1, Geometry, Biology, and Latin 2. There are some exceptions to that. There may be a boy who is very advanced in math, maybe going into Algebra 2 in the freshman class, or particularly advanced in the language, but it's pretty unusual. That's the typical one. And then the main choice is going to be what to do about the 5th. You definitely need a 5th class, and then whether or not to take a 6th class. And in freshman years, you'll hear from the various department chairs 3 main choices for a 5th class: a modern language course, a civics course, which is in the history department, or a visual and performing arts course. And there are good reasons to choose any one of those 3 as the 5th class. Again, you'll hear about that in a moment from the department chairs. In terms of a 6th class, our general advice is there's no reason for a freshman to be taking 6 classes unless they have a good reason to do so. And by that I mean they may have a particular passion for a language or an arts, or they want to combine a history with something else. They have a particular reason why they want to do that. They shouldn't, however, feel that they need to take a 6th class for the sake of having 6 classes. I think sometimes there are students who feel if I don't take a 6th class, it won't be a challenging enough course load, it won't look right. That's not the case. That's not a good reason to take a 6th class. So 6th classes can be a good choice, but we always say make sure there is a reason for why they want to add that 6th class. So that is kind of a general overview of the process. We're now going to hand it over to the department chairs who will come up in the alphabetical order of the department, starting with the English department and Mrs. Gracie Bassett.
Thank you all for being here this evening. As Tim mentioned, my name is Gracie. I, on my best days, have the privilege to chair the English department. Most days I do my best to teach English 8, so 8th grade English. Since this is high school curriculum night, I did want to say a word about the curriculum. We read books here. We also study grammar, and we write a lot. We certainly write a great number of themes, the long and storied theme of MBA lore, but we also write short stories and poems and memoirs. But we do read. We do read a lot. We read towering, staggering works of genius that come to us through poems and novels and vignettes and plays, and in that way, in the English department, we pursue wisdom. Though we are going alphabetically, I also like to think English is a part of everything we do here academically at this school. Our study of grammar, for example, supports the work of the Modern Language Department, and though your boys may have decried the diagramming of sentences, we are reinforcing a logic-based deduction process that appears in a geometry proof. When we think about argumentation and evidence-based conclusions, we're supporting the work of the history department. When we identify and nuance and discuss expression, we are working in concert with the visual and performing arts department. And finally, when we parse the difference between active and passive voice, we are strengthening the ability to write a compelling lab report, to distinguish between, I'm serious, between correlation and causation in the science department. So for all of those reasons and many, many more, English is a 4-year requirement here. It is an integral part of everything we do in the intellectual formation of our young men. So for 9th grade, you have a choice between English 1 regs and English 1 honors. The requiring qualification for honors is a 92 year-end average. So right now, if your son does not have a 92 as his semester average on his first semester transcript, if he's in a regular English course, his teacher will place him in a regular English course for the next year. Now, if he gets, let's say he's an 8th grader right now, he has an 89 in regular course, finishes the year with a 90 year-end average, he will stay in English 1 regs for next year. But in the English department, it's not locked into a permanent placement forever. If he ends sophomore year with a 92, he can move up to English 2 honors the next year, and so on and so forth. The English department does offer 1 AP course. It is available senior year. The most standard way to get into that course is to take honors at least sophomore and junior year, most typically freshman, sophomore, and junior year. That said, there are exceptions made periodically for juniors who have really distinguished themselves and earn admittance into that AP course in the senior year. In terms of course content, English 1 is what we call a genre course, so just a study of the English language through form, short stories, poems, vignettes, novels. English 2 is a survey of American literature. English 3 is a survey of British literature. And in senior year, there's a study of tragedy for the regular English courses in the fall, and then a seminar-based course in the spring. Right now, the seminars are speculative fiction, so science fiction, art and literature, study of Sherlock Holmes, and Southern literature. So thank you for being with us this evening. I'll be available afterwards if you have any further questions.
Okay, thanks. Oh, yeah, there it is. Thank you. I was looking for the keyboard. My name's Clay Bailey. I'm chair of the history department. And first of all, I wanted to segueing from Gracie's presentation, I wanted to thank the English department and Gracie for her work because as with English, so also with history, there's a great emphasis on reading and analyzing and making arguments. And so the fine work of the English department makes our work easier to kind of present that from my perspective as chair of the history department. And I teach, primarily I teach sophomores. I teach U.S. history, AP and non-AP. And we benefit greatly from the cross-pollination that happens between American Lit that 10th graders are studying and American history. Mark Twain, among others, also Hawthorne when we're talking about the Puritans. It works very well. We have color-coded things here. There are 3 requirements in the high school for history: Requirement A, Requirement B, and Requirement C, not necessarily in that order. Typically not in that order, actually. And I'll start with the C requirement. In this case, C could stand for civics, although it's civics/social studies. And typically that requirement is fulfilled either in the freshman year or the senior year. I would say about 2/3 of ninth graders take civics, give or take. It varies a little bit from year to year. Then just about every single 10th grader takes U.S. history, either in the AP form or the regular form. And then in 11th grade, there are at least, the default kind of non-AP is, we call it Modern Europe and the World, but it's essentially a world history course. Years ago, we were teaching modern European history, and it just kind of amorphosed into what we call Modern Europe and the World. And then senior year is full of elective possibilities, but also, as I stated before, every one of those things listed in red, as you see, it fulfills requirement C, which is the civics/social studies requirement. So in terms of approval for AP, because we don't have any courses in the history department that are designated as honors courses, at least for the time being. And there is no honors civics, for example, in 9th grade. So in terms of qualifications for AP, which is a question which often comes up, one way to qualify for AP US History is to take civics and to do very, very well in civics. We, as Dr. Boyd mentioned and as Ms. Bassett has also mentioned, we err on the side of caution, and so as in other departments, this time of year, we counsel students that if you are interested in being considered for AP, if you're a current 9th grader and you are in civics, or if you're not in civics, we're going to wait until the end of the year, until the end of the second semester. So that's a typical pattern really across the departments. In terms of, I'll answer questions at the end, and the question that often comes up is, can my son qualify for AP US History without civics? And that's what I started to say before. The other path in is to for example, take 2 foreign languages as a freshman, or occasionally we're seeing a student who's taking 2 math courses, and then maybe that student is a violinist and that student wants to continue with music as well. And so if that student has done very well, and again, we err on the side of caution, especially at this time of year, then the possibility is open for that student to take AP US History as a sophomore. Now, how do we define very well? It's a little more difficult if he's not in a history course. Typically, we look at, okay, is that student in honors? How is he handling the challenges of, say, honors biology or honors English? And we just kind of assess holistically there. I'll make a pitch for the all the electives that are up here. They're labeled as electives in the senior year, but it's all, so oftentimes students graduate from MBA having had 4 history courses. Sometimes they're doubling up in their senior year, or even occasionally in their junior year. The 10th graders whom I teach, a few of them will ask me, may I take AP World History, and AP Government. And first of all, I caution them about their overall workload and look at it holistically, and that's always something that they can discuss with their advisor as well. But it's a possibility in the junior year, and then there's certainly a large number of students who do that in the senior year. Let me explain the asterisks here by AP Art History. AP Art History is a wonderful course. It doesn't fit neatly into the social studies category, yet especially for students who are artists, we encourage them to take that course and do what we can to let it be the course, if they need it, to fulfill that C requirement. There's a bit of caution there because the situation has arisen a couple of times where seniors applying to a large state school, and both UT and University of Georgia come to mind, have been told, you haven't fulfilled our requirement for social studies. And that student has then had to pivot in the second semester and get in some sort of government class or an economics class to fulfill that, to jump through that loophole, or through that hoop, I mean. So all that to say, I wanted to give a plug for AP Art History as another option down the road. I know most of y'all are parents of 8th graders, but it's a good course, and that's the only hesitation we have on that. And likewise, Dr. Fuller teaches a wonderful senior level course, the senior seminar, that fulfills the requirement, and that pretty much counts as social studies or history. But I point to him because he has more than one foot in the visual and performing arts department, but does a wonderful job with that history, with that course, which is an interdisciplinary course, but primarily a history course. Again, I'll be here at the end as well if you have any questions, and I think that about does it. And Mr. Davidson, I believe, from the math department is next. And you can advance this.
All right, good to see you all. I'm Mike Davidson. I'm the head of the math department. I work with the math counts team, so I work with some 7th and 8th graders. I also teach honors pre-calculus and AP Calculus AB, so I work with some sophomores, juniors, and seniors as well. It's really just the freshmen, the one class I don't work with every year, but I see them at the start and the finish. I know you get a lot of information tonight, so I'm going to speak largely to the 90% of people with kind of traditional math schedules. If you're in the 10% of people who have kind of non-traditional in terms of being a year ahead or doubling up, probably better to talk one-on-one about kind of those special situations. If you're the parent of an 8th grader and he's an Algebra 1 regular, that'd be the majority of 8th graders would be an Algebra 1 regular, that's the most common class. Their track for high school most likely would be geometry regular in the freshman year, Algebra 2 regular in the sophomore year, pre-calculus regular in the junior year, and then non-AP calculus/statistics in the senior year. Calculus/statistics is a first semester calculus, second semester statistics course. If your son is in Algebra 1 honors currently, the most common track for them through high school would be very similar but honors. It would be geometry honors in the freshman year, and then Algebra 2 honors in the sophomore year, honors pre-calculus, and then the most likely place to go would be AP Calculus AB in the senior year. Now that can vary a ton. Obviously, like other departments, students move up and down. If a student's in regular and wants to move up, like other departments, the cutoff's typically 92. If your son is in, say, regular Algebra 1 right now and had a 99 at the semester, the teacher may sign off and say he's going to be totally fine in honors geometry next year. Let's just sign him off right now. If it's borderline, like Dr. Boyd mentioned, we may put a note and say let's review at the end of the year because it's a close call in terms of placement. If a student is in honors, excuse me, and grade is below an 85, we typically recommend they drop down to the regular level the next year. If you see the note about the rule of 85-92, that's what that's in reference to. Below 85 in honors or AP, we tend to say, let's drop down to regular next year. In regular, the 92 or higher, we say we feel comfortable moving you up. Just a quick note about other paths. We have more math classes at MBA than any other class because there's so many students who double up or triple up on math. Sometimes students will double up with AP Statistics. Sometimes they'll double up with AP Computer Science. We have 2 AP Computer Science classes, AP Computer Science Principles and AP Computer Science A. Principles is an introductory AP Computer Science class. AP Computer Science A is a very challenging Java-based coding class. So there are students who will take just AP Statistics. There are students who will take AP Statistics and AP Calculus AB. One note about a difference between AP Statistics and AP Computer Science, you can take just AP Statistics. So if you have a son, for example, who is strong in math, but is sure he won't go into a STEM field, he's not going to go into engineering, physics, chemistry, math, he may be better served taking AP Statistics and AP Calculus in the senior year. If he might go into a STEM field, I'd highly encourage taking Calculus in the high school. However, he could take both AP Calculus AB and AP Statistics as a common double math class in the senior year, but you can't take just AP Computer Science. AP Computer Science is a wonderful class. I encourage your sons to consider it if they're looking for a second math class, but it can't be the one math class you take. We always treat it as a second class. So if your son took, for example, pre-calculus or honors pre-calculus in the junior year and wants to take computer science in the senior year, maybe AP Computer Science Principles, I strongly encourage that. And for a lot of you, this is a years down the road, but it's a good thing to reinforce. So that wouldn't be his only math class. He'd be doing something like CalcStat and Principles, or AP Calculus AB and AP Computer Science A, something like that. Again, I'm trying to cover the majority of cases. If your son is a year ahead, which is a small group of students, their path would be a little bit different. They'd be kind of just what I just said, but a year ahead, and more likely taking AP Calculus BC than AB. But if your son's one of those special cases, it's usually better to talk one-on-one. Anyway, I'll be here at the end if you have questions, and thanks for being here tonight.
Hello, my name is Travis Barclay. I'm the chair of the science department here. I just want to talk a little bit about the courses that we offer in the science department. As you can see up there, this is the normal course sequence. And if your son is currently in 8th grade, he is in earth science right now, the typical track is that in his freshman year, he will take a biology class. He has 2 options, honors or regular biology. If your son is currently in regular earth science, the progression is he'll probably go right into regular biology. If you look at the very bottom right there, the double star right there, the similar threshold to what is in math, if your son gets a 92 in a regular level class and is interested in moving into honors, he is allowed to do that. If your son is at that threshold or slightly above and decides that science is not his thing, or he wants to try another year of regular level science class, he is more than welcome to do that as well. So in 9th grade, you have a choice between biology and honors biology. And then in the 10th grade, kind of a similar type of story where you have chemistry or honors chemistry. In the 11th grade, the junior year, is where you have some options there. We offer regular physics, once again, kind of that similar regular track. But this is the opportunity that students have to take their first AP course in the sciences. They can take AP Physics 1, or they can take AP Physics C. AP Physics 1 is basically the same thing as 1 semester worth of college level material that's just been stretched out for a year for a high school student, and that is algebra based. AP Physics C, this is not why it's named that, but it helps out to remember the C stands for calculus. That is a calculus based course. Typically, a student that's in there is in that advanced track in math and is concurrently taking calculus as a junior. Doesn't have to be, but in order to qualify for AP Physics C as a junior, your son must be in honors chemistry as a sophomore. So if your son is really interested in physics and possibly taking that class, he needs to make sure that he is in honors chemistry as a sophomore in order to have that as a prerequisite for AP Physics C. However, that does not preclude him from taking that in his senior year. So there's always an option for that as well. I will say that AP Physics C is a pretty tough class. That's the class that I teach. It does stretch you, especially if you're a junior that is not taking calculus concurrently. So they're learning calculus and physics at the same time. That class is broken up into two main topics of mechanics in the first semester and then electricity and magnetism in the second semester. As you can see from the slide up there, in 12th grade is where things kind of open up a little bit, and this is where you have some opportunities for electives. I will go ahead and say this, your son is not required to take a senior level science, however, a ton of students do. Okay? A lot of colleges, I think, like that, and a lot of students are interested in learning more science as well. So if you take a look up there, there's an opportunity for them to take AP Chemistry and AP Bio. They should have had some experience with that in their sophomore year and freshman year respectively by taking those two. If your son took regular physics as a junior, we have a lot of students that will take AP Physics 1. If they really kind of fall in love with physics in that regular physics course, they will take that college level physics course and possibly get some credit at the end of the year for taking that. AP Physics 2, the best way for me to explain that is it's the same level as Physics 1 in terms of the difficulty and the pacing, but basically that would be the second semester of the college level physics course. So really in Physics 1 you study mechanics, and in Physics 2 is where you study things like optics, thermodynamics, modern physics, and things like that. And then once again, like I said, if your son was either in regular physics or AP Physics 1 and really loved physics and wants to take Physics C at that point, he can. You can see the next possible course we have is environmental science. We have an AP level of that, but we also, this is the very first year that we're going to offer a regular level environmental science class. It's the only regular level class we offer as a senior elective. And the reason we introduced that course is it allows students that maybe are not ready to take an AP level class, but still want to learn more about the world and the science, especially when it comes to the environment. And that not being an AP course will allow us to dive deeper in certain things, maybe take a little bit more time and study current events, go deeper into projects because we're not bound by that AP curriculum. So that is a possibility. And then the last class that's up there is Human Anatomy and Physiology, which is denoted as an honors course. And then, like I said, I already said it already, but that threshold of 92, if your son is currently in a regular class and is interested in moving up into honors, he needs to reach that threshold of a 92, and in order to stay in the honors AP track, he needs to maintain an 85 in the year before. Once again, my name is Travis Barclay, and I'll be up here at the end of this. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cal Fuller. I'm the chair of the Visual and Performing Arts Department. I'm pleased to be with you this evening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the curriculum of the Visual and Performing Arts. It's structured to nurture young men as artists so that they are prepared to further artistic study in college if they choose, and certainly to hone their creative skills, helping them to problem solve and collaborate effectively no matter what field of study they choose. I would add that there's a special trust and connection that happens in art classes, whether it's during art critiques, concerts, or theatrical productions. Our young artists trust each other, and they bond in a certain special way that is memorable. In my own case, I would say not just memorable, but unforgettable and invaluable to my development as a young man in a school very similar to MBA. So without further ado, here is some quick guidelines to high school registration in the 3 areas of artistic study at MBA. So what would be the house left column for you, which is also the stage right column, the visual arts. Studio 1 is the first level and prerequisites for all other courses in the art sequence in high school. It is strongly recommended that young artists begin their study with Studio 1 in 9th grade when possible, especially if they're considering continuing to the AP level as upperclassmen. Next, theater. Theater arts is the first level high school class and is open to freshmen and sophomores. Studio theater is the advanced course open to juniors and seniors, focusing on acting as well as playwriting and directing original plays. And finally, music. The Big Red Chorus is the first level of high school course and prerequisite for all choirs. So rising freshmen interested in singing will sign up for this class. If they've had, I was talking to Matt Smith, who's one of the choir teachers today. If they've had more than 1 year experience in choir in the junior school, they can audition for chamber choir going in as freshmen, but most incoming freshmen would automatically go into, without an audition, go into the Big Red Chorus. Auditions for upper-level choirs will happen in the next few weeks. In fact, the sign-up sheets are already there. So ask your sons about them and where they are if that's something that they're interested in. And they will have those auditions before they officially register. That's on January 26th when those 2 sheets of paper are handed in to their advisees, as Dr. Boyd said. So ask them if they're interested in that, or either Mr. Smith or Ms. Warnock. If they're not sure, you can email them or talk to me afterwards. The high school bands and chamber orchestra require instructor approval and an audition. Again, those auditions will take place in the coming weeks prior to registration. If your son is interested in chamber orchestra, they should email Ms. Wilson, Nikki Wilson, if they have questions or need more information, or Mr. Frederick or Ms. Jan Pippin for information about the jazz bands. Finally, AP Art History and AP Music Theory are open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors with approval of the instructor. Art History can be taken for art or history credit with approval. Music History, a new course offering, is not available this coming year, but if you're planning ahead, notice that it will be offered in the following year and will alternate with Music Theory. So plan ahead either way. If your son might be particularly interested in Music Theory, but as an upperclassman, they may want to take it this year and not wait until next year. We know that navigating registration for your sons can be challenging, and we're here to help. After the presentation, seek me out if you have questions. My marvelous colleagues and I look forward to getting to know your young artists in our classrooms, in our studios, on our stages next year. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I'll tell you to close down the show, so I'm going to use one time right next on the stage before, so I'm going to use this power line now. My name is Daniel Valdez. I'm the chair of the Floor Line Music Department, who recently changed my name. As you can see on the board, these are the classes that we offer. A couple of things to understand is what are the requirements for graduation. The first requirement is you need to take 2 years of Latin and 2 years of the lower language, modern language, or you can take 3 years of Latin. That would satisfy the languages requirement for graduation. As you can see, we offer in the modern languages, we offer in Chinese, French, German, and Spanish up to the AP level, as well as in Latin, all the way to the AP level and the 5th year course. We also offer Greek, depending on the year and the enrollment. That is usually a junior and senior level course. Some of the questions you may be asking is why should you take a modern language or why should you continue with Latin? Well, as far as Latin is concerned, that's a foundational course that starts in the 8th grade, continues into the 9th grade as well, and it's mostly focused on the interpretive mode, which means reading. So we do a lot of reading in Latin, we read authentic texts, and we translate from Latin into English. Now, that boosts their knowledge of English vocabulary and grammar. It's really good for the SAT and ACT exams. I said I'm on the AP Latin course the other day, and I was really impressed with the level of vocabulary that the students didn't know in English to be able to accurately translate the Latin text they were reading. We also do a lot of history and culture. In the modern languages, we have a different approach. Modern languages are really focused on proficiency. And what does that mean? That means the ability to be able to use the language in spontaneous, unrehearsed situations. So we are less concerned with the student's ability to conjugate a verb, more concerned with their ability to communicate an idea, even if they don't use part of the language. This approach allows us to move through modern languages very quickly. So, for instance, I use Spanish as an example. Typically, the Spanish course in most schools is a 4th or 5th year class. This year, it's a 3rd year course. These students go from Spanish 1 into AP, and they have a lot of success on the AP exam. That's why we're able to offer AP Spanish and AP Spanish literature here at MBA. The same is starting to become true for the other languages, such as French and German. However, typically, for German especially, it can be more contact hours to get to the AP level, just because it's a more complex language. And therefore, we recommend that students that they plan to take, go to the AP level in German, that they get in German their freshman year. Because it will take the full 4 years to be as proficient as they need to be to perform really well on the AP exam in AP German. But as I said, we have really dynamic German teachers, and we now have students who are able to go into AP in their third year as well, same with French. The one exception is Chinese. Chinese does take 6 years typically to get to the intermediate high level, which is what the AP tests. So if your student is thinking about taking Chinese and would like to go to the AP level, then I highly recommend that student begin Chinese his freshman year, because only those contact hours, all 4 years to be able to get to that level. We also have, there's a lot of languages up here, and maybe a student does not know what language he wants to take next year. My recommendation is always to say that the student should pick the language that he feels most excited about wanting to speak. Not what he feels is going to be the most useful, not what his parents feel may be the most useful, but what he feels he would like to be able to, he enjoys or is most interested in. And the reason for that is because, as I said, we're a proficiency model, proficiency-based, and the student is the one who can be put in uncomfortable situations where they'll be uttering sounds that are unfamiliar, and they're going to get a lot of strange looks, especially from me, when they say something you don't really understand. That is part of the process, or part of the process. And it's something that we want to make sure that the student is really invested in that approach. So the student needs to be the one that owns that language, that really wants to, is really interested in it. And that will determine his success. So one thing I always say if a student doesn't know is they say, what country would you like to visit the most? Would you like to visit Rome? Would you like to visit a Spanish-speaking country? Would you like to go to France? Would you like to go to Germany? Would you like to go to Taiwan, China? The answer to that question is usually determines what language the student should take the modern language. If the student is still not sure and doesn't really care, we have an undecided option. And they say, I'd like to start a language. I don't really care which one it is. They can decide that, check that, and we will make sure that we follow up with the student and try to pick the language that best meets his style and that is most interesting. I know you've heard a lot, and but I'm going to be here like everyone else in case you have any questions.
Okay, so thank you to each of the department chairs. We actually did change the name of this department just last year, and I'd puzzled over exactly what the motive was, and now realize it means that Daniel gets to go last alphabetically here and can make the closing sales pitch. Although you may not have realized you actually wandered off camera for most of that, so nobody who wasn't here is going to hear any of that. In any case, we will now all be available for questions you might have. Please come on and find us at the front. Again, if a question occurs to you only after you've left here, please reach out. We'll be glad to set up a call or a meeting as well. So thank you all for being here, and please come find us if there's something you'd like to ask us about.